We have talked a lot about the town of Duck Lake in the last month. It received national attention when the mayor said he'd be open to selling the town's naming rights for the right price. The community desperately needs money for road repairs and new water and sewer lines. It got us thinking about how other smaller communities are paying for big projects. Yesterday's federal budget included a $50 billion local infrastructure fund. So today we're going to get reaction from the president of SUMA, that's the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association. We're going to learn about some of the creative ways that communities are cobbling together money for infrastructure projects. And we're going to take you to Carrot River and Bigger. But of course, we'd also like to know what's going on in your community. Have you seen some unique fundraising to pay for an important community project? Maybe you've had things that really worked and maybe things that aren't worth trying. Give us a call, 1-800-716-2221 or email bluesky@cbc.ca. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Remember last month when the mayor of Duck Lake announced a rather shocking idea to help his town pay for those much-needed projects? Here is the 306 host, Peter Mills, speaking with Mayor Jason Anderson.
A year ago, just before I decided to run for mayor, I started looking at ideas for trying to increase our funds to see what we could do, because every municipality everywhere needs extra money because it's so expensive for everything. And we're looking at upgrading our water and sewer lines. And I thought, there's such a huge price tag on that. One of the municipalities close to us had just done theirs, and it was just about a $10 million price tag on it. And I had read an article at that time, and it said one of the largest deals for a stadium naming rights in the States, they're coming in at $35 million a year for 20 years. And it's like, man, I wish I could come up with something like that, because, we have our town hall here and we have the skating rink, but what's that really going to be worth? A couple $100,000, couple $10,000, nothing really major. But so then I started thinking, what? I wonder if we have something big. And it's like, well, why not the name of the town? It's something different. And when I went out campaigning, I promised everybody that I had a little trick up my sleeve. And I said, what? I honestly have no idea whether it's going to add up to anything. But I said, if given the chance, what? I think we should give it a try. So passed it through council. It was a very close vote, though. It went 3-2. And you know what? We're going to see what we can come up with here.
Yeah. So what kind of deal is this going to be? Like, what are you offering to people?
Well, it's for permanent naming rights is what we're looking at. So in other words, their name would be on GPS. It would be on all the maps. It would be on the weather network, and that's not just in Saskatchewan. That's worldwide, right? But they'll have the highway signage also. They'll have naming rights for our skating rink and for our town hall. And with the location that we're at, we're halfway between two of the major cities here in Saskatchewan. We're right basically in the center of Saskatoon and Prince Albert. So we have about 6,000 vehicles a day that are driving by on Highway 11. So is that worth something for anybody? Who knows?
Who knows?
All I know is, why don't we see if we can find out? All it is right now is just a conversation anyway, because it's not going to be our council that can actually make this kind of a decision. It will be including all of the homeowners and business owners, because this still has to go through the government, even if something happens that we do get an actual offer in. It would have to go to the town. The town would have to make the decision. And if they approved it, well, then we'll apply to the government and see what happens.
Mayor, let me ask you, have you just tried asking for more money from the province to do this infrastructure spending you need?
No. It mostly comes off of population. And we're a smaller center. We've only got about 580 people here in town. We're definitely trying to increase that. But if we don't have to increase our taxes and we're not going to get any more from the government, why not try this out?
Why not try this out? That is the question. Duck Lake Mayor Jason Anderson speaking with the 306 host Peter Mills. Our producer Nicole Hawk did reach out to Mayor Anderson for an update. So far, he says he has not had anyone come forward to offer to help pay for the project, and still no bids on the opportunity to rename Duck Lake. So let's talk about how we pay for things and how the opportunities present themselves. Randy Golden is the president of the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association. And despite the name, their membership is also made up of small and mid-sized communities across the province. Randy is from Yorkton, but today in Saskatoon for the Paths to Prosperity Provincial Summit. The focus there is strengthening local and regional economies. A lot of local leaders from across the province are there today, and she has stepped away from the action to join us for the hour. Thanks for making time today, Randy. Welcome back to Blue Sky.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. It is always a pleasure to speak with you, and especially when we're speaking about our municipalities, our urban municipalities right across this province.
So we just heard that tape from the mayor of Duck Lake. He's trying to come up with this creative way to deal with the problem that many communities in our province are facing. I'm wondering, when you heard that, I mean, you're at SUMA, you're networking with other community leaders. What did you think when you heard that was a potential option for raising money?
Well, I say that we know that each one of our urban communities, over 450 of them across this province, is dealing with the same thing. Right now, we just heard the federal budget, which is not bringing a great deal to the table. You did ask, or it was asked of Mayor Anderson, has he asked for funds? Yes, we have asked over and over and over again. That's what we advocate for, but it's just not coming. So communities come up with innovative ways, and we'll be hearing about that later in the show. But our municipalities, we're responsible for 60% of all of the public infrastructure that's in this country. 60%. That's your town rinks, your streets, your roads, your water plants, your sewage plants, everything possible that makes our communities a great place to live. But on the dollar, the tax dollar that's collected, we get about 8 cents to that dollar. And right now, with inflation and costs and everything that's happening, it's very difficult to maintain our infrastructure. So you hear creative ways to raise funds.
Is there a fine line between creative and crazy?
That's a great question. And I guess I would say to you, that's up to the municipality. They're responsible for their tax dollars and where they spend their money and the collection of it. So is there a fine line? That's for the municipalities to decide. That's for their residents. And you heard Mayor Anderson say their residents are going to have to make that decision.
And it was a close vote in that case, 3-2. So it was a fine line even in that vote. How often are you hearing from communities, though, that are in similar situations? They have a real need for something, not a want, but a need. And you said 8 cents on the dollar doesn't go very far in a household, let alone in a municipality responsible for all of the infrastructure needs of a community. So how often and where are they coming up with this money?
Well, it's so interesting that you asked that, because when we talk with our members right across the province, and I want to really emphasize that this is from our smallest villages, under 100 population, to our towns, our resort villages, our cities, the large cities, the mid-sized, the small cities, and our northern municipalities. There's three things that they are very concerned about. And infrastructure is always one of them. It's policing, which again costs money, and it's a concern around healthcare. So infrastructure is something we hear no matter where I go to whatever community in this province. Those are the things that infrastructure is there all the time. And it can mean, like as you heard Mayor Anderson, his water, wastewater, they need new pipes in the ground. I can say from my community of Yorkton, and when you introduced me, you said I was a councillor in Yorkton. It's interesting because our residents sometimes don't understand just what we're dealing with. So for the city of Yorkton, 16,000 people, if we laid all our underground pipes end to end, they would go from Yorkton all the way to Vegreville, Alberta on the Yellowhead Highway. That's 758 kilometers. Some of them, we've heard, some of our drainage was laid in 1910. So first of all, you got to be happy that they lasted this long. Mm-hmm. But that's what communities across this province are dealing with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you go back to 1905 when some of these communities started, and they're struggling because the infrastructure is as old as the town. Before we go on to our next guest, I want to just differentiate your role with SUMA versus being a city councillor, and what SUMA is doing to kind of help municipalities with some of these struggles.
Yeah. SUMA's role is to be the voice of our 450 urban municipalities. And really, they advocate for policy, for funding from our provincial government. More and more, we go back to, when we joined in 1905, we are the creatures of the province. So as a good parent, they should be, being able to look after us. And we're responsible, but we need that additional funding. We can't do this on our own. The property tax model came in Confederation, and we're still using that model of funding for our municipalities. And as you know, when we came in to be here in Saskatchewan in 1905, the roads, the sewers, the water, recreation, policing, all looked much different than it is now. But yet we're still using the same type of fiscal model.
I think of all of the things that we've improved since 1905, like water quality, light, like all the technology. I want to talk, we're going to go into some of our next guests, but I want people to know, for those that are listening, we're going to talk about the federal budget a little bit later on in the show, but I want to keep the focus for now on communities and what they're doing in this creative model of fundraising. So Randy, stick with us, and I'm going to take us now to the northeastern community of Carrot River. That is where Carrie Nigel is the mayor and Miranda Blaber is the recreation director and economic development manager. We have reached them today in Carrot River, sitting side by side. Thanks for being here, ladies.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Mayor Nigel, tell us about Carrot River. How big is the community, and what are your main industries for people who are maybe just hearing the name Carrot River for the first time?
Well, it's more popular than I thought when I first got here. Everybody seems to have heard of us at some point or the other for how small we are. We sit in between about 900 to 1,000, just under 1,000 people. For the last probably about 10 years or so, it's been fairly steady. We've got a wood mill here. We've got a full running peat moss. We've got a good forestry industry. We have a lot of big industry here, but we fall into that same category as everybody else, where we can't bring in more people to do more jobs because we don't have the residential, we don't have the infrastructure, and everything kind of has to come all at once, which is very expensive.
So tell me, what's your population like? Like, tell me about your population base. Who lives in Carrot River?
That's a good question.
It's a fairly diverse population. For a while, we noticed it was a lot of retirees, a lot of seniors, but lately it's been growing where young families are moving back home. People who left to go away for education are finding ways to bring their families back home to raise their children and live, play, and grow here. And with that, we ended up having a new school built. That is one of the wonderful positives that has recently happened in our community. And it's a K-12 school with room to include neighboring communities. So there's a future in sight for young families who wish to be in smaller communities out here in rural Saskatchewan.
I think it's interesting that you point to the young people coming back, putting down roots with their families, because then the community starts to grow again. Instead of shrinking, you start seeing a growing population. What are some of the things that you've had to revitalize because they're starting to see the end of their lifetime, or they've lived beyond their intended lifetime?
Things we've had to revitalize. Ooh, are we talking infrastructure?
Yeah, let's talk. Yeah, infrastructure. Yeah.
Our water treatment plant had to be upgraded. And with that, we've been having to do a lot of water lines just because going into an RO system, without getting into it, we've had to do a lot of upgrades. That was a sizable expenditure. It was a really important step for our community. And that one was one of the big ones. Moving forward, sewage lift stations. That's the big one on our radar as we've had the need for development, and we're unable to develop because we need to expand that infrastructure, and we're held up.
What is a sewage lift station for people? People know what a water treatment plant is. They may not know what a sewage lift station is.
Do you want to? So it's a gravity fed system. So all the sewage and waste that you have through town will run into a main line, and because it's gravity fed, it only gets so far. You can only run downhill for so long before it gets to a lift station, and it brings it back up and then sends it down gravity fed again to our main lift station, which then lifts it again and sends it out to our lagoon.
I was talking last week on the phone with the mayor of Moosomin, and I said, every mayor I've talked to lately has told me they've got a new water treatment plant. And he said it's because there was this federal grant and that a lot of people took advantage of it. Is that what your town did as well, Mayor?
We did, yes. Yeah.
How did that affect borrowing? Like, how much did you have to come up with versus the federal and contributions, et cetera?
1/3.
1/3, I think it was that, which was that was a big step for us. But it was helpful getting the other 2/3, but we had to come up with that one.
And
1/3.
Yeah, how much is 1/3?
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a while ago. I'm not going to be able to pull that number out. Carrie wasn't in council at the time.
Yeah.
It was sizable enough that we had to take out a debenture, which is not uncommon in municipalities to take out loans against the town in order to fund these projects. But you couple that with the need to upgrade water main lines and then repair the road above that water main line. We're at our debt threshold for the moment. And as a municipality, that kind of puts you at a standstill for a while.
That is what the mayor of Moosomin told me as well, is that going through with these water upgrades has really hampered their borrowing ability because of this major project. And I think that might be something that we see across towns around the province as well, because they took advantage of this, but it also limits some of your other capabilities. What are some of the things, Mayor Nagel, that might be preventing your town from growing?
Well, that's the infrastructure is the first step, because you need to, get your ground ready before you bring anything else. We have room to expand, and we have projects that are coming up in the future. But until we can get all of our lift stations figured out and our infrastructure figured out, you can't even start. You can't put a house on a piece of property if it doesn't have services going to it, which we just don't have the funds coming in.
How do your citizens react when you start talking about spending money?
They have the same shocked looks that we do. The numbers that are getting thrown at us they get bigger and bigger every year. And being that we're trying to play catch up with, like Miranda said, we had to take out debentures to do this water treatment plant, which was great. But we fixed one problem and created 2 or 3 more, where it's just you add more and more, like she said, then you got to put the road on top, and it's a lot of work to follow it up. So when we get to this point, even like you said, it's amazing that our infrastructure has lasted this long, because ours also is quite dated, and we're getting to a point where we're really gambling now on time frame. But there's nowhere to pull money from. We can't borrow anymore. The governments aren't helping us with any extra funding. Every time we try and look into something, we either don't check the boxes, or it's not available, or the window is already closed. It's just quite difficult for us to try and make steps forward. And the only way we seem to be able to do it is to go into more debt, and we're almost right at where we can be anyway. There's not really much further we can go.
Today on Blue Sky, I'm Sam McKegg. We are talking about infrastructure costs, small towns, and creative ways to cobble together money in a time where everything costs more and infrastructure is getting really old. Currently in conversation with Carrie Nagel. She's the mayor of Carrot River, and Miranda Blaber. She's the Carrot River's recreation director and economic development manager. And we were talking about basically being stuck. You've borrowed as much as you can. Things are costing more. What do you have on your plate right now, Mayor Nagel, that's the next big project that you're trying to figure out? How are we going to pay for this? And what do you need? How much money do you need?
Well, it'll be definitely the lift stations first. And we got a number thrown at us that was a really base number the other day that kind of scared us all. And it was looking at about 4.5 million, which makes everybody nervous because we always know the first number is never the correct number and it only ever gets bigger. So every year that we wait, every year it doubles or triples the costs of everything, everything from supplies to our staff to just building in general. So we've tried to do kind of like Duck Lake as well, where we aren't going as crazy on the creative side, which I think is a wonderful idea of just thinking outside the box. But I also think it's quite sad that we've been pushed to this level of we have to be this creative because we're not getting the help that we need. I think we should be able to have the choice to do both.
I think it's hard. I know my mom grew up around Odessa and they just opened a new town hall and they fundraised for it and they built it. It's a lot easier to fundraise for something like a town hall because it's a gathering place, but it's a lot less sexy to fundraise for a sewage lift station. How would you, if you needed it, like next week, how would you come up with the money? What are some of the potentials for fundraising?
Well, we do have a few fundraising committees around town. One of them that I'll get around to speak more on is our Pasqua Trust Committee, which started with a what's the word I'm looking for?
It started in 2009, where there was a group of people who, between the municipalities, actually, it's a joint partnership, and it's a committee of people who created this endowment program. So individuals can donate, they can bequeath money upon their passing, however they choose, to this organization that is intended to support the municipality of Carrot River and its surrounding RM. One of the caveats to that, though, is that it's supposed to support education and recreation, because that's, as you say, a little bit sexier. It's a little bit easier to get people behind, not sewage lift stations and pavement on your road. But the nice thing about that is it's a tool for us that we can access to foot the bill and help spend the money in the recreation areas. So if we need to do a repair at our arena, we can reach out to the Pasqua Trust through their granting program to assist with funding a project at the arena and then divert funds towards other municipal expenses such as road repairs or this lift station.
So you need something education and rec to apply for so that you can get money for the more practical things.
Yes.
Do those opportunities exist, though? Like there's only so many things that you can make that work for.
They do exist. Our rink, it was built in 1982. And when it was built by a lot of volunteer and donations. And so things weren't always done great. And times change and codes change. So we have a lot of work that needs to be done there. And we recently inherited the old school that was left by the school division when they built our K-12 school. That comes with it some very large maintenance projects as well. So it's never ending where the money needs to go. So, and it's not uncommon to be like, okay, well, let's get funding for this so we can redirect funds elsewhere within our municipal budget. It seems like a real juggling act, but I think every town everywhere is doing it because
options are limited.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Where are you looking for growth opportunities? This is kind of where I want to leave it. Is where's your focus in terms of growth?
I feel like we're stuck there. We're looking at more residential with all of our industry that we have here. Our mill, our peat moss, our trucking industry, our forestry. We'd like to. We have a real trouble with housing everybody, so we lose a lot of those workers to surrounding areas just for places to stay. Now, if we could keep them here, there's a lot of them that want to stay here. They like the area, they like the town, they like all the amenities around us. They'd like to stay here, but they've got to drive a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes to somewhere else to stay. So we're hoping on some future projects and some annexation into the town from the RM to expand on our residential, but that's where we become stuck again with, do we fix what we already have or do we start building new? They both cost a lot of money, and usually fixing the old stuff costs more than the new stuff. So we go round and round in circles and just hope for something to break at some point.
We do have a rather boom, like she talked about industry. We do have a growing industry, whether it be forestry or even agriculture. So there is some growth happening in the industrial side of our community. And growth in any kind is going to increase tax dollars and revenue into our economy. So we do have some things happening in the ag industry for sure. Other than that, we hope to see our tourism side of things somewhat take off. We branded as Saskatchewan's Outback 10 years ago, which seems bizarre to me. And we've been working on marketing that. It kind of ebbs and flows as budgetary allotments allow, but seeing people come through our community and building that industry too is a great area of growth and opportunity for us.
I love ending on a high note. Ladies, thanks so much for taking some time to give us a picture of your little corner of the province today. Best of luck with your juggling act. You seem to be doing the best you can with what you got.
That's right. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. That was Mayor Carrie Nigel and Miranda Blaber, the Recreation Director and Economic Development Manager in Carrot River. Also with us this hour is Randy Golding. She is the president of SUMA. And Randy, listening in on that, what did you take away from that conversation? And is that a pretty common experience for town councils around the province?
Very much so. Everything they said is what we've been hearing right across the province. And it's interesting how that limits growth because we know that when communities grow and economic development grows, our other orders of government, they collect GST, they collect income tax, they collect PST. None of that comes really back to us. We're very limited on the revenue that we can bring in, the revenue sources. And that's something that SUMA has been advocating for years to our other orders of government.
Randy, if I remember it correctly, someone flagged this to me just a moment ago, that Ottawa had been approached before about adding 1% onto the GST and that going to municipalities. Did that conversation ever go before like a balloon in the sky?
It definitely went to our other orders of government, and even looking at what the province might do, but that is something that did not get any traction at all. So we love to hear some of these creative ways to look at bringing more revenue in, and we will definitely take that to our to feds and to the province with the rationale of why we need it, because we have got all the proof as to why we need it. Do you want to grow our province and our country? We need to have that in our municipalities so people have places to live, do their business, as the trucking and the logging and all of that goes back to our provincial coffers, more than likely not to the municipal revenues.
Okay. I want to take us now to the town of Biggar. On Highway 14 is the town, 93 kilometers west of Saskatoon, or it is 95 kilometers south of North Battleford on Highway 4. Jim Rickwood is the mayor. He is on the line with us now. Welcome to Blue Sky, Mayor Rickwood.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So tell us, what is going on in Biggar?
What isn't going on in Biggar? About 6 years ago, we were approached by a couple that grew up in Biggar, and they did very well in business, Wayne and Ina Lou Brownlee, and they wanted to give back to their town. And so they came to town and they said, we want to help out with the project. And the council of the day didn't really take them seriously, and they were persistent, thankfully. And they came back and they kind of talked to people around town. Our main street was looking shabby. It needed some updating and a lot of updating. And so anyway, what we settled on was they were offering us $2.5 million if we could raise $2.5 million to match. So anything up to $2.5 million they'd match. So we started out, and our infrastructure under our main street was 112 years old. And so that would have to come out of our pocket, and they would fund anything on top of the ground, anything visible. So we started at our north end along Highway 14, and we made plans for a gateway zone, so welcoming you into town. And then we had a transition zone where there's some business, but there's some residential as well. So that went from our 8th Avenue to 4th Avenue, and then from 4th to 1st is our downtown commercial sector. So, and then after that was our old CN station, the old Canadian National Yards, where we got our namesake. In 1908, the train went through. We didn't have a name. When it left town, we had a name of Bigger. So it's very significant that we honor that presence. So we developed a plan. We had some extremely dedicated individuals that went on a fundraising mission. That fundraising team raised $2.5 million. We got our $2.5 million from Brownlee's, and what we did, we put the priority as our commercial sector and our transition sector. So anyway, we did that. We did the infrastructure. We put in the new piping underground. If we wouldn't have got that support from Brownlee's and the donors, we wouldn't have been able to have pavement or sidewalks or new street lights or anything like that for many years. So we were able to do it all in one project. So it was really, really good for us. It tied up our Main Street for a whole year, basically, a whole summer season. But at the end, it's beautiful now. And that dedication, that commitment to your town, it's what really shone through for us. Not only did it get our project to where it is, the committee was really inventive and ingenious in ways like they sold street signs. So families could sponsor a sign for $5,000, and it would be hung up on the street where they grew up on or had some significant connection to. And so some of these streets have like 5 signs hanging down, and it all came together really nicely. There was a lot of buy-ins. Our Main Street, the first block off of it, they were called ways. So it wasn't their block, it was a way. So, for instance, we'd say Randy Golden Way, if she would have given. So those were a little bit more money. But in the end, we raised $2.5 million. We got $2.5 million.
What was with the $2.5 million? Is this a door-to-door thing? Is this bake sales? Is this, passing the hat in church? $2.5 million when you're in a community of your size is a lot of money.
It is, and they did everything. They had just a good campaign of going around and shaking down people and businesses and corporate connections to Bigger, and of course people that had done well financially in other industries outside of town and wanted to give back to their hometown. So they did pretty much everything other than hold people upside down and shake the money out of them. But it was good. It was a really good project. But not only out of this did we get a project, we built community spirit. It brought our community together. There's the 95-5 factor, the 95 positivity, the 5% negativity. The 95% people were just totally engaged. The 5% were very loud. But at the end of the day, we got our project. So we got those 2 sections done, and we wanted to go on with the rail park area. So in honor of Brownlee's commitment to this, we named it Brownlee Square. We relocated a Canadian National caboose from our north end down to this area. We have a sound stage that's going up. We have a replica station because our old station became really decrepit and it was demolished many years ago. And we're going to have a covered-in farmers market area, and we're going to have a promenade and just a whole bunch of things going on down there.
Soundstage, you say?
Soundstage. So next summer, June 13th, we have a big celebration. We're going to have a concert down there, and it's open to everybody. So Bigger will be the place to be on June 13th. And it's going to be pretty exciting. We're expecting upwards of about 3,500 people. So come on down and enjoy it. It's a free event, and food trucks will be there. There'll be bars here and there along the way, and it's going to be good. But out of this whole thing that, it not only built community and got the project done, but it attracted others to come to town. We haven't lost any businesses during COVID. We've lost none. In fact, we gained businesses during COVID. We presently we've got a 24-unit condominium project going up on Main Street. That they chose our Main Street location because of how good it looks. We've got the second Canadian location for Farm in the Dell. It's a home for a rural setting home for 10 adults that are intellectually challenged. The other only other Canadian place for Farm in the Dell is at Aberdeen, Saskatchewan, and so we're kind of leading the way in that too. We've had a lot of people relocate from British Columbia and Ontario. I was talking to a gentleman here not so very long ago. They sold their condo in Ontario for $800 and some thousand. They bought a house that was bigger than their condo for $279 or whatever it was. It was under $300. They banked the difference, and they can travel. They can do whatever they want. Small town Saskatchewan is a bargain. We know that, and we're very fortunate that we had that support from Brownlees and got the ball rolling. So that was our big project. We absolutely have the infrastructure problems, like the water treatment plant will need some upgrades in the next couple of years. We're looking at that. We're budgeting for it. We're very mindful of where we are and what we need to do. Sometimes we have a few surprises, but we've been able to look forward and prepare for the future. We're very fortunate that way.
Mayor Rickwood, before I let you go, I'm wondering, have you encountered any challenges to growth? Like, it sounds like things are, as the kids would say, bumping in bigger, but are you coming up on any challenges with needs for money or infrastructure?
Make no mistake, the road to good places always has bumps on it. So anyway, we want to smooth out those bumps as much as we can. We haven't had any burning necessities that we have to go and go to church and pray, or else go to the government and kneel down and ask for a few more rubles to be sent our way. We haven't got to that point. We have had the fortune of good management in previous councils for many administration cycles. And we do have reserves that we can draw off of in case, but we prepare for the future always. But we have to meet the needs of the community, and we're meeting them. We've set a very high standard for our people.
Mayor Rookwood, thanks so much for giving us a picture of how things are going there. Best of luck with that grand opening of your soundstage.
We'll see you there.
All right. That is Jim Rookwood. He's the mayor of Bigger. If you're listening in and thinking, oh, we need that fundraising, or maybe you've done some fundraising for a community project, we'd love to hear about how you've come up with ways to fundraise. Were you going to corporations? Were you seeking, estate bequeathments? How are you coming up with the money for your community? Give us a call, 1-800-716-2221, or email us, bluesky@cbc.ca. I want to go back to Randy Golan, who is the president of SUMA, who's been on the line with us through the show. Randy, Mayor Rookwood sounds like, for all intents and purposes, things are pretty good in Bigger.
But I think that also happens with good planning, asset management. So you know what's coming at you. You know the lifespan of that infrastructure, and many communities are doing that asset management. But you still need to have your property base. You need to have that revenue so that you can use reserves. And one of the things that SUMA has been working with the Saskatchewan Foundation is we now have a new initiative called SUMA Invest, where communities, if they do have some reserves, if they do have some funds that are in savings account and not getting a lot of interest, SUMA Invest will work with you to get get a good investment portfolio going. And the other thing that it does, if you're requiring that funding, you can pull it out quickly and there's no penalty. So, SUMA is constantly looking at how we can provide services and resources to our communities. Because boy, Sam, I don't know about you, but I got June the 13th because we're going to go bumping in Bigger. And I invite Mayor Nagel too, because I hear Jim is a great dancer. So I think that we can have some fun.
I mean, you've sold it. I can say you've safely sold it. There's people circling that day on their calendar. Randy, let's get a little more serious. Federal budget. What'd you think?
Well, we're still investigating. So I'm also on the board of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I've had some alerts come from them. Our SUMA policy analysts have been going through the federal budget with a fine-tooth comb. There is not a lot of detail. I just want to say that. What we saw is a commitment of $50 million in what is now called the Community Build Strong Fund. Now, they've rebranded. So for Mayor Nagel and Mayor Rickwood and anyone else listening, they've rebranded what was at one time the gas tax. Then it was called the Canada Community Build Fund. Now it's the Canada Build Strong Fund. But they've only put $50 billion in that for all of Canada for the next 10 years. In light of what we see, so that is about $5 billion a year. What the old former funding we received for the ISIP, that was much more. It was $15 billion every year for 15 years. So they're compressing that besides rebranding it. So we need to see more detail. What is that going to be? What's going to be eligible? Is it for that sewage treatment plant that we've been asking for? Or, what are they doing with it? Is there funds for community of life, community facilities like the rec, like the pools, like the parks, like the sound stages and those kind of things? SUMA has also heard from our members that we are now advocating for there be a portion secured for smaller communities. So they're not competing against the big communities from across Canada, because that becomes very difficult. And I go to both of your communities, and you have a CAO that has such a responsibility. Now, besides, they've got these large project funding applications they have to put together. The other thing that we've been advocating for, Sam, and it's pretty darn important, is projects have to be what they call shovel ready. So they have to come with an engineering report and an engineering portion of that, which is costly. So you put your application in, you get all the engineering done, and you're denied. So that goes on a shelf along with the engineering report. And the next time you may apply, you have to get a new engineering because that's expired.
And everything costs more money.
Everything costs more money. So we're asking for, instead of shovel ready, it's shovel worthy. So that some of those expensive things that would go on to it. So we've been asking for all these things, and it's not going hand in, our hand out all the time. We're still saying we will put our dollars and our commitment forward, but we need those other two orders of government to come in because they benefit more than we do.
Okay. This has been very enlightening. I feel like I have learned so much about Carrot River and Bigger in this. If you have been listening in today and you have thoughts on this, you can always call Talkback 1-800-661-7540 or send us an email, bluesky@cbc.ca. Randy, it is always a delight to chat with you. Thanks so much for making time for us today.
My pleasure.
That was Randy Golding. She is the president of SUMA. She's also a counselor in the city of Yorkton.